Hello everyone, Giuseppe here from silence+other sounds. So today's video will be a little bit different because I will showcase some of our libraries with another library that has been released a few weeks ago by our very good friend Stefano Maccarelli. You are probably very familiar with Stefano's work, and in particular with his Ethera series of vocal libraries. And his latest one, the latest installment of the Ethera series, is called Ethera Gold Prometheus, which is the first one that is purely based on male voices. And I would like to showcase how Prometheus and Omen, our library based on ritual voices and word chants, can work together, and I'll tell you, they work very, very, very well. So I've spent a couple of hours yesterday creating this track that is mostly where I mostly used several instruments from both the libraries, from Omen and Prometheus. There are also some strings that are from my latest library, Dojo, which is a scoring synth. And so let's listen, let's check it out.
Ona de kunde ire nortus ame varas.
So, as you can hear, both the libraries share the same, I would say, a very similar stylistic frame that recalls Vikings and Pagan music and ancient sounds in general. That's the style that is peculiar of both the libraries. However, the way they are approached and developed is very different, and this makes them complementary to each other and to, as you can hear, work very well when used in conjunction. So I would like to briefly go through the several parts of this track. Well, I won't go very deep into the details of every instrument of both the libraries, because otherwise I would end up with a 3 or 4 hours video. I mean, both Omen as Prometheus feature several instruments, a lot of functionalities, and both Stefano and I have detailed walkthrough and demos of all the functionality of the libraries on our respective channels. So if you want to dig a little bit deeper into the characteristic of both, we got you covered. What I will do now is to highlight the strengths of both the libraries and how they can complement each other. They can be complementary to each other and work very effectively. So the first thing that I would like to go through is this first part here. You see that there is this group which includes, well, don't mind the naming here because I did this track in a couple of hours, so sometimes I've written Omen when it's Prometheus and vice versa. But here we have 2 instances of Prometheus and 1 of Omen that created the main singing theme at the beginning. So it's this one. So let's start from here. So my idea here was to create a sort of small choir, small ensemble of voices, and I mostly used Prometheus. I have two instances of Prometheus of the same instrument. It is the dark true legato, where you have different articulation. From the menu here, you can select A, O, and And I think I have A here and on the other one, singing the same melody. And on the top of that, there is one of the many snapshots that you can find in the vocal layers in Omen, which basically is conceived as one instrument where a lot of voices are sort of packed together, and you can experiment by blending these voices that belong to the tradition of several cultures around the world, from Tuvan and Mongolian to Nordic to South African, some also Italian, Sardinian in particular. Sardinia is as far as I know, because I had to sort of educate myself when I was developing Omen about all of these vocal styles, is the only one region in Europe that has an authentic throat singing style that still lives today and is still so peculiar of the music of the island, which is a word per se, fabulous island and fabulous culture. And so I decided to pack together all these voices where you can combine them and create these sort of atmospheres. In regard to Prometheus and generally all Stefano's library, I think that where Stefano's work really shines in creating the realism of singing. I mean, over the years, he has been building a deep expertise about developing vocal libraries, about developing true legato techniques, both in terms of recording as in terms of scripting. And frankly, I think that there is no library out there on the market that nails the level of realism and details when it comes to the true legato for the Ethera libraries. And Prometheus is no exception. As you can hear, the true legato of this dark true legato is very realistic and creates this phrase that it really nails this kind of dark evocative styles. As I say, on the top of that there is just one layer. It just played on this part of the keyboard, so there is this sort of shaman chant plus a texture that creates a little bit more texture on the top of the true legato voices. The reason why, you have a legato here in the vocal layers, but not a true legato, because, if you just look at the menus here, you see how many voices you can select from each of these menus. And so they have been recorded, at least some of them, in a way that they can approximate, let's say, legato, but it's not a true legato. It would have been impossible to squeeze all of these voices together, and each one of them with a true legato. But there is not just a technical reason. The point of Omen, of developing Omen, was to capture vocal styles that are not necessarily, or are not at all part of the Western tradition. And so the detail of the voices that I was looking for example, those strange vibratos, the overtones and the throat singing, it's something that is, very difficult to configure in a true legato scenario. You can do it. I also tried to do it, and I paid for some recording for doing that. And I ended up discarding it because it would have sacrificed the original sound of these vocal styles that come from a conceptual music in the Far East or in other parts of the world that is very different from our Western tradition and conception, the way of thinking to music. So I had to find a way to somehow put them on a keyboard and make them realistic while playing without sacrificing all this distortion, all this swelling, all this, crazy things that go on over the sound. Very different case, very different than the case of a more quote-unquote conventional voice, right? So I think this is the two main differences between the two libraries. Prometheus still be both in the same stylistic frame. Prometheus really shines at realism and create realistical phrases, at least for the true legato instruments alone, which is very peculiar of the Ethera tradition. Whereas Omen, and I would say that this is pretty much the same for all our sound libraries, the kind of concept that I stress so much is the idea of composing through sound. So I concentrate on capturing or creating with sound design very unique kind of sounds, okay? Something that is sort of the fence between being perceived as a real voice and something else. And that's something that a lot of people told me, hey, this voice is some kind of unearthly and really evocative. How did you do that? Well, I could talk for 6 hours, or probably even more, about how I had to do all of that. It was a lot of work, as I'm totally sure that Stefano went through a lot of work as well for his work. But yeah, this was the idea of Omen. It's the same thing as all the other libraries like Malaventum and Stringate. It's all about creating, unusual sound, of composing the sound and giving the composer and sound designer out there the possibility to enrich their composition through this very meticulous researched kind of sound. And this is the reason why I think the two libraries work very well together, because you can combine the atmospheres and the uniqueness of the sound of Omen with the, let's say, with the realism and with the, with the smoothness, let's say, of the vocals that are still very, very belonging to that side. Both Stefan and I really love everything that is about ancient music. We talk a lot about ancient instruments, and I'll tell you something, but this, I can't tell you much about this yet. We are working to a release together. As I say, I can't tell you much. Will hopefully be out maybe end of this year, perhaps early next year. But we're working on something that is really fun and really new and really unique. So, once I will have something new and we'll have something new to show you, we'll certainly post some videos and stuff around. Another similarity / difference between the two libraries, the fact that both feature a phrase builder. As you probably noticed in this break here at the track, there is this, ancient sounding phrases. Oh, I still haven't solo. Yeah, these ones. Yeah, the phrase builder here in Prometheus. And the way it is built, how the phrase builder is built, is that you have this step sequencer, and at each step you can choose an entire phrase here from this menu. So for example, if you select this step, for example this one, you have this ki, re, tu, si, cru, dir, right? And if you click here, you can select from a list of these long phrases. You can set the timing for the sequencer. You can reset the sequencer here. And also there is this very nice feature that you can point to a given step in the sequencer by using these yellow keys here. So you might, manually randomize the steps that you are playing by using these yellow steps here. And it's a chromatic phrase builder. I mean that each note corresponds to a given phrase sung on that root key. Well, we can listen to it again. It's here.
Amevara kire nortus nupaleis amevaras ona de kunde kire nortus amevaras.
It's a very convenient way to build to create this phrase builder, because it relies on entire phrases. So an entire phrase, has that actual realism, and so you can combine them. But the interesting thing is that you can do legato as well with this, both monophonic as polyphonic with this one. And I created this sort of harmonization that I really enjoyed. Also, I don't know if it's a case of it was intentional, but there are some phrases that are sung at more intensity. So I tried to create, this sort of crescendo that starts a little, smooth and quiet, and then it grows in intensity and in rage, of the singers. It's a very, very nice one. Yeah, another thing is that you can also change the steps of the sequencer by using the sustain pedal. So you can either do it manually or repeatedly pressing the sustain pedal or whatever you have attached, let's say, to that channel, to that mini channel. And Omen has a phrase builder as well. Actually has two phrase builder. I'm not sure if also Prometheus has multiple phrase builder. Probably has. Prometheus is something like 40 instruments. So I once again, I cannot go through everything about the libraries because it would be too long, way too long. But in Omen you have two. One is called phrase builder war, and the other one is called sorcery. And as the name suggests, they are different for the vocal style. The war sequencer phrase builder is more aggressive and more, military sounding. The idea was to reproduce, this sort of marching army of ancient warriors that were singing their war chant at unison. And with the sorcery, which is the one that we have here, the voice is a little bit more mysterious and dark and evocative. And my idea was to recreate a sort of, ancient shaman, wizard, magician, whatever that, creates this sort of rhythmic sorcery, right? And the way it's structured here is different, because rather than entire phrases, here you have syllables of groups of syllables that you can select step by step. For example, just for the sake of demonstration, here you can select, a, long, short, a, ka, all these small truncated syllables of just one, one element. Or you can go to 2 syllables group, for example, this one, hoi, le, and the 3 syllables group, which are tempo synced, of course, like in the case, of course, of the phrase builder in Prometheus. And you can select the timing step by step. You can select if you just want to have 1 voice or 2 voices. You can select the volume independently for each one of the steps. Here you can select the length of the of the sequence. I mean, how through how many steps you want this sequence, this vocal sequence to run through in loop. Well, you can also deactivate the loop here. You can randomize all the steps, which is a feature that you have in Prometheus as well, and then you have some other effects. And this one is a little bit different, because by pressing this yellow B key, this plays the whole sequence, top to bottom, left to right, to create your own phrase. So let's have a quick listen here. Yeah, I smash it with reverb because I just like it. So you can see at each step, this switch here, this button here, that's great. Okay, so this is a very simple one, but if you have a look at other Omen demos, you can find some interesting and more intricate phrases, that sit very well. And another thing is the percussion. This is from Omen. Is the bonus instrument. I mean, this one was a nice surprise, because I didn't think to add percussion when I was developing the library. And then a friend of mine told me, well, you really should. I mean, at least add a bonus percussion kind of thing. And so I said, okay, yeah, why not? Let's take something that, has that tribal, well, you get it, kind of aesthetic, and let's do some loops that you can easily combine and stack on top of each other. And so you have these 3 groups of drums, low, mid, and high. They are highlighted with different color on the keyboard. For me, it was just a nice add-on, and it ended up by, being one of the most appreciated features of the library by those who have purchased it. So, eventually turned out to be a very good idea. And here there are both real, ancient drums. For example, the Celtic bow drum. There is also some stuff from the tradition of southern Italy, where I'm from. There is tamorra, which is this frame drums with some sort of small bells, attached to the frame that creates. I think it's this one. Yeah. Or maybe this one. I don't remember. Yeah. But there is also a lot of stuff that is not a proper percussion instrument at all. I mean, this is what sound design is to me, is to find a sound that is convincing. It does not matter where it comes from. So I really like to, continuously tap and, experiment with stuff around me as a percussion. And so many of these sounds that you can hear, all these loops, are not percussion instruments at all. For example, there is some shells that are just a piece of furniture that I liked a lot, and I purchased it somewhere in Puglia a few years ago in flea market, and it ended up, being used very nicely with all jingling and evocative kind of sound. There is other woods and, any sort of object that created a sound that was convincing in this stylistic frame. I used it, and it turned out very well. Another thing that I really liked of Prometheus, well, this track is way too crowded and I struggle to find the right one because I'm too lazy to do the proper coloring, etc. Should be this one? No, it's, yeah, this one. Sorry, but for some reason, Kontakt 7 gave me some problems when I dragged the interface from my MacBook screen to the secondary one. And also this thing keeps circling, so let's wait for a second. So you have these, rhythmic cello phrases that have this sort of folk aesthetic and peculiarity, so I will play them in solo. So this is it on the same part where you have well, let's play together, I mean, with the phrase builder, let's see. Wonderful. I really like the textural peculiarity of these cello elements that Stefano has recorded. I mean, they really work great with the vocals. I mean, I really like the fact of Prometheus that whatever you pick, you always end up with something that is usable. That is more or less the concept of this kind of libraries. I mean, you are within a given stylistic frame and you try to explore it as much as you can and provide a set of tools and sounds that always do the trick, when it comes to give something inspiring. Omen is built on the same concept. And also there is this part where we have some additional strings, and this is from Dojo, which is my latest library. And Dojo is a scoring synth that is made of two different instruments. One is called Prometheus, that has a more, rhythmic, aggressive sound that's based on an advanced modulation engine. And then we have this other instrument that is called Katasynth, which is, in terms of scripting as a concept, not very different from the vocal layers in Omen, with the difference that here you have any sort of sound from strings, woodwinds, and keys, and sound design layers. It's a lot of sound, and you can assign given controls, for example, cut off on one of the 4 layers, or maybe the morph between these 2 layers to the x and y axis of this of this XY pad here. And I'll play in solo these strings. So, well, I've tried to summarize very quickly, all the most significant peculiarities of the instruments that I use in this track. But once again, both instruments, as Omen and Prometheus, as pretty much everything that both Stefan and I have developed, is very deep and would require a walkthrough video on its own, which are there. Just have a look to to our YouTube channel for our libraries, to Stefano's channel for his libraries. I mean, I don't want to make this look like a pitch sale, but just have a look around at the comments for Stefano's libraries, for my libraries as well, and everyone concurs that for the price, which is very reasonable, is a lot of bang for the buck. So just let me move to the page on Zero G website. I think that today is the last day of deals for Prometheus. 1 day and 13 hours, $87. And this is Maleventum. Let's go to Omen. And Omen is $79 at full price. So, in case you are wondering, should I choose this one or the other one? Well, it's as I say, these two libraries share a very similar stylistic frame. They both work well, very well, to do Viking, Pagan, ancient stuff. But first of all, the voices are different, and the concept behind is different. When it comes about libraries, I think that I'll do this example. There are bazillions of strings library out there, right? But most of composers that I know end up buying so many of them. So the question is, if there is just one possible way of recording strings and scripting strings, why do people keep on buying string library and string libraries? And this is simply because I think that in sound design is everything about the vision and the concept of the producer that is behind that. Someone will see some things in a given sound and a given instrument and will go through that direction to express it better, that peculiarity that he enjoys and likes particularly, and another producer will see something else, and so the whole development process will be completely different. And so it's like looking at the same thing from two different windows, which lead to two different development directions, and so to two different products. And in the case of Prometheus and Omen, as you can see, there are endless applications to work to blend them together and to come up with something that, when it comes to this style, ancient Viking styles, I can say that these two libraries might get you covered for years probably. And also let me add a few words that both Stefano and I are indie developers. We don't have big companies. It's just me in this studio, Stefano in this studio. And the advantage of being, a boutique library is the fact that when you fall in love with the concept and with the sounds, you basically decide how far you want to go in order to express and realize that vision as the best that you can. And I can tell you that for Omen, I went so deep, because I had to find all these singers that practices those specific styles, overtone singing and throat singing. I didn't know anything of this stuff at the time, so I had to start to educate myself. I had to travel a lot to find these people. It's not very easy to find people that is knowledgeable and knows and can sing, practice these styles. And I was in the middle of the project and I was kind of wrestling against my own ideas, because I had this rough idea in the back of my mind, but I didn't manage to express it as I wanted. And I was on the point of throwing a tantrum and crying and screaming and throwing objects on the floor. But eventually, it turned out pretty nice. And I'm telling this to say that there is a lot of love, there is a lot of passion, that drives this kind of projects. And that's the reason why they are so peculiar, but at the same time are able to do good on the market. And I'm 100% sure that what I'm telling you right now, Stefano would concur as well. So guys, I think that I've tried to be as brief as possible. I hope that I managed to show you the potential of using both these libraries together. Once again, the intro price of Ethera Gold Prometheus ends tomorrow. Today is June the 1st, so it will end on June the 2nd, 2023. I think that there was also Omen in 30% discount for those who purchased Prometheus. I have no idea if it's still valid, but otherwise, you can find it on our website, $79 or euros at full price. So, thanks a lot for watching.